Welcome to season 2 of Alternative Living Chats. This podcast is where I speak to like minded people who have decided to give up on living in the standard house and found an alternative lifestyle. If you would like to be a guest, please drop me a message. All my contact details are in the podcast information. Also, please remember to leave a review as this helps other people find us. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Hello, and welcome to today's podcast of Alternative Living Chats. Today I speak to Dave Thompson, and he tells us his journey about living on a boat and how he got there. I hope you enjoyed today's chat. Hi, and welcome to today's vlog, and I'm going to let Dave introduce himself. So if you'd like to just tell us a bit about you.
Hi, I'm Dave. I live on a narrowboat, and it's a fantastic, wonderful life that I have living afloat on my narrowboat. And how it all started, if you want to know about that,
Yeah, definitely.
was from land to water. Well, I was married, children, 26 years, and sadly, we moved to Tenerife to retire early about 10 years ago. And sadly, my wife passed away in Tenerife a year after moving there. So it was a devastating time for me. Yeah, obviously, we go through the loss and depression and all
Yeah.
that. And I stayed there for another year, but then I came back to England because I ran out of money there. I couldn't survive on my own. So I came back to England. I just came back with a suitcase, a kayak, and a bicycle. That was it.
Wow.
And I ended up couch surfing.
Mm-hmm.
Couch surfing. I didn't have a home to go to, so I was homeless in a way,
Yeah.
but not luckily not on the streets like a lot of people are. But and then I met up with a fantastic guy called Paul. Paolo C, as people will know that he does the music on my vlogs
Yeah.
online. And he put me up for a good year or two at his house. And I became interested in music, started singing with him. And but there was a time when I was there when I actually got depressed again, and I ended up in a hospital. Waking up, I'd taken an overdose. It
No.
was that bad.
Yeah.
Depression hit me. I was still obviously grieving lots, for my
Yeah.
wife, the loss of my wife. But Paul got me off back on my feet again in a way. And then a job came along because I wasn't working. I
Mm.
had hardly any money. I actually wasn't claiming any benefits because, well, we won't go into that, the politics of that.
Yeah.
But um, I ended up, Canal River Trust were offering a job, and it was fundraiser as a Canal River Trust fundraising,
Oh, yeah.
and for the Friends program. And I took that job on, and I started fundraising. I became one of their top fundraisers on the Canal Towpath up here in the northwest. I'd be at Anderton Boat Lift. I'd be all
Oh,
over the place. But at this time, I didn't have a boat, but I got to know the canals,
yeah.
and I've always been connected with water because I used to free dive on the water in Tenerife. I was brought up at the seaside in Bridlington on the east
Oh,
coast.
yeah. I know it well.
So I've always been connected with water. And it was wonderful. I started really feeling the tranquility, the peacefulness of it all. And it really started taking me to a great place within myself.
Mm.
And I thought, this is beautiful. I got to know a lot of boaters, and many of the boaters, the majority of the boaters, said, I've been doing it years. I love it. It's a fantastic way of life, away from the crazy world, the madness.
Yeah.
It's a great escape. Um, so I thought, yeah, that's great. And they kept telling me this. And I worked for about 4 years, for 2 years with CRT doing that fundraising. And it was in front of me. My own home was looking at me all the time. And I just didn't connect at first.
Yeah.
And then it was one day I just went to work, and I just saw these boats, and I just thought, I'd love to live on a narrowboat. But how can I do that? How can I've got no money? I've got
Yeah.
no money. Luckily, when you've got lovely family, and sometimes we don't dare ask that question for help.
Mm.
And I've always been like that, where I don't like to ask anybody. I like to get by on my own.
Yeah.
and do it my way. But I actually then decided I'm at a state I don't want to get depressed again. I want to turn my life around, start a new chapter. And I asked a family member about money for a boat, and he gave me the money.
Wow.
He gave me money, but I have to, but obviously I have to pay that back
Yeah.
as a loan,
Yeah.
because the bank wouldn't give me. I went to the bank for loans, and they would just honour you.
No.
Sorry, you can't have a boat, and if you're going to live on it, no. Um, and I couldn't afford a mortgage or anything like this, payments back. So
Yeah.
that was fantastic that a family member helped me out. And I went searching for this boat, and it was like love at first sight, actually, the second or third boat that I'd seen. And I walked straight in, as you do, and you just know and feel, have that gut feeling that
Yeah.
it's for you. This is home. And so here I am, 5 years on now,
Wow.
living this life on the canal, connecting, and it's brought me closer to my connection is closer to nature now.
Yeah.
So I see it all happening on the canals, and I've always been quite a bit of should we say, I'm not a religious person. I don't really like the word spiritual, but I am on my own spiritual path in a way, a journey,
Yeah.
and I'm experiencing lots of synchronicity, manifestation of things, and I see what I've gone through, and I started the vlog because lockdown came along, and I ended up not having a job anymore with
Yeah. Of
lockdown. So
course.
I
Yeah.
ended up making this vlog series on YouTube, Narrowboat Business, and the idea was just to share my experiences, beautiful experiences,
Mm.
because a lot of people on YouTube channels, fantastic YouTube channels out there for narrowboaters, but a lot of them we're talking about day-to-day things, about just and focused on the engine or things that were going wrong all the time, negative as well as
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
I just thought that I'm experiencing all these lovely things, and it outweighs the negatives, the positives of boating.
Mm.
It actually does. It doesn't matter if something goes wrong. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter because you're going to see something beautiful like the dawn when you wake up, the colors of the sky and the birds singing, in the countryside.
Yeah.
So, that's how I ended up getting a boat, and here I am. And yeah, and I put my videos out there to try and spread some happiness and good energy to people out there, and it seems to be working.
That's brilliant. That's
And
really,
it
really
keeps me
good.
going as well. I've got something to do
Yes.
as well as, and I'll say this because I don't normally talk about this as well. I did mention to you earlier on before we started this, is that I care for a particular elderly gentleman that's
Yeah.
got dementia. I spend 2 days a week looking after this gentleman, and I get pocket money for it.
Yeah.
I don't get any big wage. I'm off the system. I don't need to pay taxes because I don't earn enough.
Yeah.
Uh, YouTube doesn't pay you
No.
pays you pennies, pays you pennies. Yeah. So I like to be independent. As long as I can just survive on my narrowboat,
Yeah.
enough income coming in just to survive, to pay for my fuel and everything, I'm absolutely happy. Um, richness, the richness is in here. It's
Yeah.
in the heart. You
Yeah.
know. I'm not bothered about richness out there, money. It doesn't bother me anymore. I've had money in the past. I've had
Yeah.
money in the and I've blown it. I've spent it. I wasted it. But now all my savings are in here.
Yes. Yeah, I can understand that.
You know. So yeah, so that's my journey so far.
It sounds wonderful. Since moving on, obviously you've been for 5 years, so actually, I mean, that's you've had plenty of practice and everything. What would you say has been the most difficult thing? I know you're saying obviously there's the good things outweigh the bad things, but what would you say has been the most difficult thing to get used to with living on a boat?
I think at first it's trailing along the towpath, quarter of a
Mm.
mile, half a mile from a
Yeah.
bridge when you're frozen in. But now I know that I'm in a better place now because I can deal with that. I accept these problems now. But at first, you struggle and you find, but you overcome it. And I think, yeah, in the rain, the stormy weather, but I love nature and I love being out in the storm anyway.
Yeah.
I'm the person that goes and lies down in a forest when you're not supposed to be there under trees in a great storm. I just love that energy. But I think it's when engine problems, you do have them. Um,
Yeah.
I I've been stranded here for the second time in ice, which is absolutely fine. But um, the engine the other day, there was a problem, and I wasn't going to go anywhere, and I've had to have it checked out, and it was the stern gland, the actual drive shaft or something. And
Oh,
I'm a little, I can service my engine, I can
yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
I know where everything is, and I can tighten nuts and bolts and things like that and check things. But there was something wrong with the drive shaft. And it was a bit worrying, and there was a lot of smoke in the thing. And I also woke up the other morning, um, a little bit worrying is when you move on to boat, the first thing I think you find is you start thinking about, will I sink in the night? What if there's a hole? There's this sinking feeling going on
Yeah.
when you first get a boat. The worry of that, because it is important to check the hull and everything,
It is.
before you buy. But I come back to my boat after being looking after this elderly gentleman, and I spent the day on the boat, didn't go in the engine bay, put the engine on. Sorry, I was going back out the boat, and I put pressed the what do they call it, the pump.
Uh-huh.
I forgot it to get the water out.
Oh, the
Just in
bilge
case.
pump.
The bilge pump. I
Yeah.
put the bilge pump on at the back there, and it started pumping out, but it went on for a minute.
Oh, crikey.
I, I don't know. This is wrong. It usually goes on just for a few seconds.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went out and had a look, and my engine was underwater by quite a few inches. So there was
Oh,
a foot and a half of water
yeah.
everywhere in the engine bay. So it was turned the electrics off. So they're little worrying things, but at the end of the day, I just look at it and I think, well, things, it's like life. It throws things at us. Things go wrong. And if
Yeah.
you know that and you expect that, it will happen. Something
Yeah.
might happen tomorrow. Um, and you just got to accept it and get on with it and deal with it. And that's most of my life now. That's how I deal with things.
That's good.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah. But
That's,
I'm looking forward to moving from this location. It is lovely here, and yeah, it'll feature on my next vlog. But some spectacular scenes, trapped in the ice again, but the two rescues as well. That's the
yeah.
great thing as well. Is I always say that it's full of peace and tranquility, but sometimes this ticker in here starts beating because there's a deer in the canal and you have to go and rescue it. Here, I've had two rescues here in the last 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
Obviously, there are other days, but it's great. It's great entertainment. I don't have a telly. I don't have
Right.
a telly. I got rid of my telly. I give it
Yeah.
away a
Yeah.
year or two back, because there's just so much. I'm just looking now at the reflections of the sun bouncing onto the ceiling.
Yeah.
And I can sit for 5, 20 minutes, an hour even, and just
Yeah.
meditate and
That's
watch
good.
that.
That's good.
I love doing nothing.
That's perfect then. It is. It's an ideal situation for you. So obviously, what are the best bits? I mean, you've mentioned a few there, but what would you say is your overall best bits for moving on?
The best bits is I'm in a better place.
Yeah.
I'm a happier person,
Which is
and it's helped me through my loss of losing Sue.
yeah.
Over just over coming up to 10 years, and and I found that I love being. I used to be a person that used to love, because I was a Butlins Redcoat. I was in a band. I was a very sociable person. I'm still sociable. That's why I
Yeah.
was with Canal River Trust fundraising, because I could get, lots of money coming in easily by just
Yeah.
talking to people. But I love, I love having my own space now. I love solitude. I love, because people ask that question, don't they? Oh, solo boating. Oh, you must be very lonely.
Yeah.
No, no, for God's sake, I'm not lonely. I love this. It's great. I mean, and then you look forward to going meeting Jazz. I got to see Jazz,
Yeah.
and there's always something to not the instrument outside, but I've become creative as well, connecting with the tranquility of this.
Mm.
You get this creative side comes out of you. I mean, I used to play the guitar a little bit, but now I'm playing a lot better. I've started writing music, my own stuff, and I've got a keyboard. I play the keyboard now. I've never played the piano keyboard in my life, but I just
Wow.
put my fingers there and start doing it. And and I think it's because you've got an emptier mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
When you
clearer.
can empty the mind of a lot of things, all that worry and stress, you find that you start being more creative.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in a better place, and that's why you see all these top thinkers, these people that come up with great IT ideas, creative for television, film, anything art wise.
Yeah.
That's usually because they come out of the mind. They
Yeah.
drop everything.
I
You
can,
know.
yeah, I can see what you're saying from that because if you look around the amount of creative people that are on boats and like do
Yeah.
their own music and things like that, it's because it is such a slower pace of life, and
Mm,
it's so more peaceful, and you haven't got everything rushing around after you. And I mean,
yeah.
how do you feel when you go off from your boat if you go into a town centre or a city centre now? Do you find it a bit overwhelming because of the amount of people around, or is it still?
Yeah. I try to stay in there for 1 minute and get back out.
Yeah, it's
No, no,
hugely
it
different,
is
isn't it?
fine. No, yeah. I don't like to go into town as much now, and I realise how noisy it. Yeah, when you spend a lot of time on your own,
Yeah,
it's like a Buddhist monk. He'll come out, he'll do some time in a monastery, and he'll come back out, and he'll go into the supermarket and he'll go, and he'll run back to the monastery. No, no. What you actually learn to do is put up with it when you're there. You
yeah,
you ignore it. You can drop it. So not always. It doesn't always work. But I just love getting in the car and I'd go off with Jazz and we go out to the countryside and I'm going to sit on top of the hills and just have a drink of tea
yeah.
and just chill out in nature. Um, it is crazy out there. You don't realize how crazy the world is until you step back.
Yes, and then looking through a
Step back,
different.
and then you look, and then when you tell people how crazy the world is that live in the city, they go, "What's he on about? He's crazy. That guy. There's
Yeah.
something wrong with him. Oh, he lives on his own on a narrowboat. That's why. That's why. In fact, I think we're the most. I can't do this because he's judging now, but I'll say it. I think living on an narrowboat, we become very wise, and we can really see a lot of
Yeah,
stuff going on out there. You
it
know.
is.
Yeah.
So, what would you if somebody's listening today and they're thinking of moving on to a narrowboat or going into changing their lifestyle? What do you think the three things that they ought to look out for or be aware of?
One, it's a big change.
Yeah,
If you're coming from a house, you have a lot of possessions. It's about letting go and releasing them things. And not holding on to everything. Um, I remember I came back from Tenerife with a suitcase, a bicycle, and a kayak. That was it. So I
yeah,
didn't have a lot of belongings. So it is a big move, and it's a big downsizing. It's like moving into a tent. It literally is. Um, but it isn't small in a narrowboat. People think it is very small in narrowboats. They're not. They are like a TARDIS, as my friend said as he came past on the towpath one day. He says, "Your boat's like the TARDIS. You're from the outside. You think like
yeah,
you're sitting in that little tin can, sardine can, and but inside it opens up." Um, and the other thing is, I mean, looking for a boat. I'll be honest. I did not get a survey done on this boat.
didn't you?
No, and the reason is, I'd spent a year or so looking for a boat, and,
Yeah,
and studying boats and listening to other boaters, and they told me that, look at the age of the boat, the build of the boat, look at the type of the build, because a lot of the builds, are like certain cars, they go on forever,
yeah,
you know, And then there's newer steel. If you bought a boat before a certain year, which is Chinese steel, you might have problems. Sorry, they swapped over to Chinese steel. It used to be British steel. So if you got a boat that's got British steel, um, yeah, there was all these things, but I learned all about that, and I went on the paperwork. As long as the boat's got a lot of good history paperwork, that is a key thing.
Right.
But yeah, I recommend if you can afford it. I say I couldn't afford really. I could afford the boat, but we did not to bring it out of the water,
Yeah.
and it would have been a long time before I got on this boat if I had a survey done.
Yeah.
Because
It eats the time up, doesn't it?
depends where you are. If you're near London, and there's lots of places, I suppose, where you can lift the boat out, fair enough. But up here in the north, we don't have a lot of places where you could lift the boat out just like that and check
Yeah.
it. It takes months sometimes, and with COVID around and things like that, I suppose it's taken maybe a year or two for people. Um, so it's check all the paperwork, but be prepared for change. And but I think the best way is to watch videos, vlogs, is
Yeah.
on YouTube. You get all your information from there. There's some great YouTubers out there, Narrowboat YouTubers, great information. And but if you want to see the beauty and the tranquility of it all, then come and look at my videos.
Yes, definitely.
I'll show you the best of narrowboating, the best of
Yeah.
narrowboating.
That's good.
But behind the scenes, behind my scenes, there are things that do go wrong. But I don't want to vlog them. We'll concentrate on the positive stuff all the time. Yeah,
That's brilliant. It is, and it is. If you can concentrate more on the positive, that's the main thing, I think, because in life, things do go wrong, don't they? And yes, you can dwell on them, or you can look at the other picture and take the positivity out of it. And I don't think people want to watch vlogs and things like that if you've got lots of bad things happening. Yes, now and
yeah,
again you can put in something that's been a mishap or something like that, but
yeah,
it's, I mean, it
yeah.
is the lifestyle, and it's the, I think there's more positives out of living on a boat than definitely than the negative side of things.
Yeah. I think this is more appealing to. I mean, a lot of younger folk. It was the main people that buy boats. The majority of people are quite elderly. Get
Yeah.
middle aged. And want early retirement, are fed up of work, and had the kids have flown the nest, have gone away. When all that sort of like disappears, and there's an investment of money from somewhere, then they buy a boat, and they spend 5-10 years or maybe the rest of their life on a boat.
Hmm.
Um, but I've noticed that the younger generation have started now, and I think that's mainly though because of the cost of housing.
Yeah.
No, they can't afford a house.
No.
I'm not going to get into the politics of that. I don't want to get involved with that. But yeah, that's how it is crazy out there, the world, and sadly, the poorer people are
Yeah.
struggling even more. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, and I must be speaking to some of the younger people that have, and in fact, we've done a podcast with a couple of youngsters that live on a boat. They bought themselves a boat, and it's also, a lot of it is for mental health as well, for peace of mind, as well as the cost. Obviously, it's reduced, but their
yeah,
mental health has been improved since they've been living on the boat, which
yeah,
is just
yeah,
absolutely fantastic. So,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just, yeah,
So yeah, so yeah, it is a wonderful life. It can. I mean, it depends. You might have problems with your boat. If you get any major problems with your boat, it's going to be a really big struggle.
yeah,
I think if these boats were on land, it wouldn't be so bad. But because we're on water, it's a lot. It can be a lot more worrying.
yes,
We,
yeah,
because we do. I mean, just down here from me, there's a sunken boat. It's been
oh
there
right,
years.
yeah,
Um, but believe it or not, they still pay the license. They still pay the license. Yeah, it's sunken boat. It's part of it. I think it's holding up the canal, actually.
yeah.
To be honest.
Oh dear me,
But sorry, I do love the history as well. Although I don't focus too much on that.
hmm,
Um, I'd like, I'd like to just say why I'm in here. Big thank you if any volunteers of Canal River Trust volunteers are watching, because they do an absolutely fantastic job,
yeah,
and
they
they
do,
don't get enough publicity. The volunteers.
yeah,
I know majority of them on the Macclesfield Canal and the Upper Peak Forest, and they do a great job. They're really hard workers, and they go out sometimes when they're not supposed to be on duty. They
It's
carry on. They just do it.
amazing. It is.
You know. Yeah.
It's their love of the job, but because they like the lifestyle, and but some of them can't. They've got to work as well, sort of thing. So it
Yeah.
gives them the best
Yeah.
of both worlds, and
Mm.
which is fantastic. And they are very, very good. So
Mm.
obviously you've got your vlog and everything. What I'll do, I'll put all the link details in here for them, so anybody can click on, and they can contact you that way as well. And
Oh,
if they want
lovely.
to have a chat and ask you about your life and everything on board, which is fantastic.
Okay. Thank you, Maxine.
So it's been really, really lovely chatting to you, and thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.